record this. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Steve Gurney. I'm sort of the voice from behind the curtain today. So I am now going to duck behind the curtain, turn things over to Pat and Eileen, remind you all to feel free to use chat to introduce yourself to the other attendees. And if you've got questions, you can type those into Q&A. In addition, at the very end of the travel parties, after Pat and Eileen take us on our journey, we offer you the opportunity to turn your mics and camera on, and we can all connect with each other. So take it away. We're going to Nova Scotia, right?
We're going to Nova Scotia and many other of the eastern provinces known collectively as the Maritimes. I want to welcome everyone to our program today, and also welcome our sponsors. Anup Mitra with the Cruise Planners American Express. He has this amazing deal to offer us. It's a private jet and cruise to Antarctica. So talk to this Anup if that's of interest. I also want to welcome the Mather at Tyson's. And we have a short video that they've supplied us with. Steve?
The Mather feels so fortunate to be able to celebrate the excitement that travel brings. The Mather is a forward-thinking life plan community being developed in Tyson's for those 62 and better. The Mather is projected to open in 2023, and we are currently taking reservations. We believe that good food, good friends, and adventures are essential components to live well and age well. And we are honored to be able to support the fabulous discussions that Pat and Eileen bring us each month. Enjoy.
Thank you, Rachel. Just a quick note to remind everyone that summer is at hand. We're going to be taking a summer break, as many of you are, and we will be returning in September, and I will give you more information on that at the end of our program. Without further ado, I invite my co-host, Pat Williams, who is going to be our tour guide through the Maritimes today.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you, Rachel. Let's see if I can share my screen. And let's see, show. And I feel like I haven't done this for a while. Okay.
Up at the top, it says slideshow. Click on.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Slideshow. I don't see it. I don't see.
We're down at the bottom. You see on the top menu, right there, right above there. Click on that slideshow thing. See where it says slideshow? Right next to review.
There's something in the way. Okay.
Oh, okay. Go down to the very bottom and see where that slider thing is. Down at the very bottom there. Keep on going. It looks like a little tiny screen at the bottom right. Keep on going over to the right.
Oh, I see.
Now to the left of that. See that thing to the left? No, the icon right to the left of that. Click on that. Click on that. There you go.
Thank you. Right. Thank you, Steve. Okay. I'm gonna make the pictures of us look small so I can see the whole screen. All right. Okay, we're off to the Canadian Maritimes. We might even see a whale. All right, we're all familiar with the provinces of Canada. It was a nice review for me to remember that up here we have 3 Canadian territories, Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. And the provinces are neatly lined up all below here. There are 10 of them: British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, and Quebec, the big ones. So that's only 6. Where are the others? Believe it or not, the others are actually the provinces that are in the Maritimes. So look, here's Quebec and here's Maine. So coming in from Maine, you can go into New Brunswick, to Nova Scotia, to Prince Edward Island, to Newfoundland and Labrador, Labrador being the stateside part of that province. And I'm going to, at the end, take you into a little French set of islands that is actually part of the province of Quebec. So we are ready to go. Now, I know some of you would want to see the provinces by cruise ship and others by escorted tour. Some want to be roaming in their own car, maybe of course, with their own timetable. And maybe some would like to drive and bike. There'll be something for everyone tonight. After my tour is ended, we'll answer any questions for you and see each other and share our experiences. We have Dr. Bob Leave with us and Elizabeth Pass, who both have homes in Nova Scotia. So this is going to be very helpful for us. So let's go. From Maine, as I said, you can ferry all around. I'm also going to take you again to the Magdalen Islands, and we're ready to go. We're going to enter through, where's my cursor? We're going to enter from Maine into New Brunswick, and we'll go to Moncton, this French historic town. And the reason we're going there is to see something very unusual. And I want to show you here. Moncton is at the end of an estuary, the Kodiak River estuary that flows out and into the Bay of Fundy and out into the Atlantic Ocean. What happens when the water's flowing out and there's a big rise of tide that rises up into the Bay of Fundy and tries to go uphill? It creates a tidal bore. I'm going to show you a picture. It's not at all what we saw, but it's the only one I could find online of the tidal bore. The tidal bore, this is just a rippling part of it. But when it comes in, I call it a wall of water. It's like a standing wave, and it comes rushing in down through the estuary. And you can go to this park called Boreview Park and watch it. It's just amazing. And this 9 to 12 foot wave travels up to speeds up to 9 miles per hour. It's really quite unbelievable. And to show you the difference in how high the tide can be, it can be 4 stories high. Here is the tide can come in and uncover all these rocks so that people can stand there, or when the tide comes in, these tops of these rocks just look like little islands in the ocean. So the rocks have been carved out by the tides at the Bay of Fundy. How do we get up to the Maritimes? Well, we can get there by plane through New York or through Boston, through Toronto. Usually we've done that. The airlines have, let's see. I wanted to continue our trip onto PEI. I'm sorry, Prince Edward Island. Got thrown off. All right, here's how you can see Prince Edward Island. We Prince Edward Island first because it's the least hilly for those of us who like to do some exploring on 2 wheels. If you like to learn history and crafts, here's PEI. See how rather flat it is? Nice biking, nice introduction to the Maritimes. If you like to learn about crafts, you can work with the famous Indigenous artists who are there showing us how to take buffalo hide and weave a drum, or make a moose hide drum and weave the pieces and take your drum home. I like taking part in the Micmac dances. You can cook their bread over an open fire. And if you have a heart for farming, you can pretend you're back in 1895 and work with the farmer, the blacksmith. We'll show you how to forge spoons, and you can tap out a rhythm with the spoons while the fiddler plays. So now that we're in PEI, I have a question for you, and see if you remember a bit of history. Steve, going to pull up a poll to ask you, in a famous novel, who is the young girl who lives in Prince Edward Island? Why don't you see if you can pick her out?
And I usually like to wait until we get about half of the audience voting. We're at 40%, 46, 46%, 56 here. Well, let's see, maybe we get a few more votes in. 60%. Okay, well, I don't think the results are going to change, so let's see if they got it right. Here's the results.
Okay, you found her. You found her. It's Anne of Green Gables. That's right. The others are good stories too. So you can close the poll, and I'm going to show you a nice picture of her. Steve, it's not moving. Let me try it.
Oh, the poll's still there? Hold on. Let me just close that there. That better? Is it gone?
Yeah, right. Some more scenes from Prince Edward Island, which is known as PEI. But really throughout the island, you can see lots and lots of reference to Anne of Green Gables and to the author of the story, who is, that was published in 1908. And the author was Lucy Maud Montgomery. There she is. Okay, before we take a ferry over to Nova Scotia, let's take a deep dive into driving up to the Maritimes. From New York to PEI, for example, it's 14 hours nonstop, a haul of over 800 miles. I think it's better to stop along the way. And Eileen does more driving up there, so she's going to take you through all the great places that you can stop to break up the trip.
Yeah, so New York City, one of my home bases. I grew up just outside New York City. I was there last week, actually. From there, it's an easy drive over into Connecticut and Stamford and New Haven. Another short hop into Providence, which is a cool place if you've not been there. And then there are the islands to explore. So Martha's Vineyard is the famous one that many of our presidents have compounds on in the summertime. Cape Cod, of course, is on the mainland. You have to take the ferry over to Martha's Vineyard, or you can take the ferry to the other island, Nantucket, which is the one that I love and go to frequently. You can get back to Boston in about 2 hours, and then you're going to have a bit of a drive to Bar Harbor. I'm not sure of the mileage, but I'm going to guess that it's between 4 and 6 hours up there. After which you would want to stop and see Acadia National Park nearby. You pass through Portland on the way to Bar Harbor. And then you finally can get into the Maritimes. So St. John in New Brunswick awaits, and Moncton, which Pat talked about. And then, of course, you can finally get on to Prince Edward Island.
Thanks, Eileen. Prince Edward Island boasts that you don't have to pay a bridge toll when you drive into it from New Brunswick, but you do have to pay a toll when you leave. Okay, we have to say farewell to PEI because Nova Scotia awaits. All right. Here we are going across on the ferry over to Nova Scotia. And you can see Nova Scotia. We're going to talk about Lunenburg, Halifax, and Cape Breton, which is connected by a causeway, go around the Cabot Trail. So who is Nova Scotia? It's a lot of cultures all through history blended together. Yes, everyone speaks English, but you'll hear lots of other intonations too. And we'll talk about that. So there are restored historic buildings and homes. Halifax, the capital, you'll see in the harbor sailboats and tugs and Navy vessels cruising the harbor. Downtown is full of restaurants, both lively and day and night, and fresh seafood and live maritime bands. And this is one of the places where you can take a sightseeing cruise or go whale watching. There are many places up there to go whale watching, and we did, in kind of a zodiac like this one on the top left. There were just 4 of us, and we were out there with the tour guide, I guess we'll call him. And so we're out there looking around and we don't see any whales. He said, oh, well, you have to find one that's blowing. You have to see the whale. And that's how we find it. So we're all looking around and finally we do see one. There she blows. And we went as close as comfortably we could and looked at the whale. I was really glad he didn't come all the way out of the water and breach, because I think he would have knocked our Zodiac over. I want to talk about the tides just again, because this is so interesting. So here's a little harbor, and you can see that you can step from your deck of your boat off onto the dock. But what happens, this is when the tide is in. What happens when the tide goes out? Uh-oh, this can happen in the Chesapeake Bay as well, but you have to be careful that you've tied your ship up with long enough lines that when the tide goes out, the boat can easily settle down on the mud. All right. The First Nations people of this hilly peninsula are the Mi'kmaq people. They invited us to their village to share a feast and traditional dance. They love to tell their stories. In one legend, their hero crashed into a whale and kaboom, the Bay of Fundy Tidal Bore was born. Well, it was nice for the Mi'kmaqs, but then the French in history of Nova Scotia, the French came to claim in the 17th century. And they were followed by the British, who brought with them thousands of Irish and Scots, which flavored the early French of Nova Scotia with its delightful Gaelic intonation. But back to the history. There was unrest in the region as Nova Scotia kept changing hands between the French and the British. And when the French-speaking Acadians, the French-speaking people refused to swear allegiance to England in 1755. So the British deported about 10,000 people and destroyed their farms. This historic site is a memorial to that injustice. Has a statue. You know who she is? Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's fictional character that he wrote the long poem about, Evangeline. Do you remember reading his poem in school? Well, I didn't know then when I read it what it really signified. He wrote, the forests old and aloft on the mountains, sea fogs pitched their tents, and mists from the mighty Atlantic looked on the happy valley. There, in the midst of its farms, reposed the Acadian village. Strongly built were the houses, with frames of oak and hemlock, such as the peasants of Normandy built. These simple Acadian farmers dwelt in the love of God and man. Neither locks had they to their doors, nor bars to their windows. Didn't we all used to live this way? And these last two lines of Evangeline are magnificent. Their dwellings were open as day and the hearts of their owners. There the richest was poor and the poorest lived in abundance. I think I felt that. All right. Southwest of Halifax, let's enjoy the fishing village of Peggy's Cove. Oop, I jumped ahead. One of Canada's most photographed lighthouses. It sits on the foggy Atlantic coast and it marks this perilous point. That's what lighthouses do. They mark perilous points so that ships don't run into them. So this one is these granite bluffs that surround the lighthouse. They're very stark. Tourists really kind of like scampering around on them and exploring the bluffs and the bluffs and the views. But you have to be careful. You don't want to fall in because if the waves are crashing that day, oh, you're in trouble. Peggy's Cove is beautiful.
So I have a story about this harbor, Pat, that I would love to share with our audience. And I have to start by saying that we Americans have commemorated December 6th as the naval tragedy that our country suffered at Pearl Harbor. But the Canadians also have December 6th as a mournful experience involving ships. On the morning of December 6th in 1917, there was a ship coming into the Halifax Harbor Narrows. It was the Mont Blanc, and it was carrying a lot of war materiel. When I say a lot, I mean it. They had 2,300 tons of picric acid. They had 200 tons of TNT. They had 10 tons of gunpowder. And as the Mont Blanc was coming in, there was a Norwegian ship that was outbound. And unfortunately, it struck the bow of the Mont Blanc. And the explosion was horrific. You could hear the blast and see the blast for miles around. And 2,000 people died in that explosion, and over 9,000 people were injured. So the Canadians commemorate December 6th for a different reason. All in this harbor.
Yeah, and that whole story is told in the Atlantic Maritime Museum there in Nova Scotia with multimedia exhibits that chronicle that collision. It's a very interesting museum, also holds over 200 model ships if you're interested in that. And I found it interesting that there was also a tutorial on the recovery efforts of the Titanic, because Halifax was instrumental in the rescue operations for the Titanic. And also part of this museum, there are some craft moored in Halifax Harbor, including Queen Victoria's royal barge, which was a gift to the museum from Queen Elizabeth II. Now I want to take you to one of my favorite places. We had so much fun in Lunenburg. This is down at the bottom of Nova Scotia as I look at the map. We enjoyed just walking, seeing all the historic buildings. The community is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, but so is every other great attraction in the Maritimes. But these are original structures from the 18th and 19th centuries. But while we were having lunch and a quaff, we heard the most haunting and catchy song, and we started singing along with the chorus. It was something about blue nose. Blue nose. Well, Lunenburg is recognized as an early shipbuilding center. The ship known as the Blue Nose looked just like this. And it was launched from the shores of Lunenburg in 1921. The ship became a racing champion, but it sank one day in Haiti. So the legend of the Blue Nose was so important to the Nova Scotians that they built an exact replica. This one has sailed around the world. We walked onto the deck of it. It's a 143-foot schooner, and it just enjoyed the wind blowing in our faces. We'd love to take a sail on it one day. I'm going to stop at Port Royal Historical Site. This was founded by the French, was the first permanent settlements in North America. But guess what happened? Who do you think destroyed it? The British. And now it has been rebuilt using authentic 17th century building techniques. I can't wait to take you to Cape Breton. I showed you in the map of Nova Scotia, it looked like up to the north, there was another island that seemed to be connected. We will see Condé Nast's most beautiful island in North America. So we included Cape Breton on our trip to Nova Scotia and crossed a long causeway to reach the island. The Cabot Trail circumnavigates the island with spectacular scenery. You can even stay at the Cabot Trail Wilderness Resort in a chalet or treetop village in a yurt. We happened to be camping this time. But you can go boating or swimming or just meditate, enjoy the scenery. Doing the Cabot Trail by bicycle is a challenge. As Bob put it, he said, South Mountain had my legs burning and North Mountain made South Mountain look like a piece of cake. There you go, Steve, you're a cyclist. I think you can do it. There's also a Celtic Music Interpretive Center there where you can dance a jig while they play the fiddle and the piano. You can visit a Glenora whiskey distillery. We did not. We had one interesting story. If I don't embarrass Dave, I'm going to tell him. Dave and I were bicycling up here and going past some farms that were right on the edge of the water, but they were up a hill. And as we were biking, there was looked like a farmer up next to his tractor waving to us, and we waved back, and I said, and he kept waving, and he looked like he was trying to get our attention. So I said, Dave, we better stop and go see what he wants. So we lay our bikes down and walked up the hill. And the man was an old farmer. He had fallen off the tractor and cut himself with it, and his leg was bleeding profusely. So Dave went and got his water bottle to give the man some water. And there was no one around, and the people in the home in front of which the field were gone. So I had to quick bike down the road till I could find a house and they could call someone to come and rescue him. And he was taken to the hospital. And the charming thing is that about 2 months later, we had to provide our names and addresses. He sent us a check for $25. Those.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay, it gives me a shiver just to remember it. Okay, Lewisburg. Bob told me more about this story that I thought was so fascinating. This is an old French town in East Cape Breton. The French and English, again, fought for control, and this town was destroyed in 1759, and only the foundations were left. But for Canada's 200th anniversary, Lewisburg was reconstructed. Historians searched the wills of the people in Paris and all the records that documented the blueprints of the buildings and the construction of the houses and their contents, and even where things were placed in the home. They rebuilt all the houses and churches and outfitted them as they had been. It's an amazing story. All right, we have to go to Wreck Cove. We had quite an experience camping in Wreck Cove, but Wreck Cove, we went to Wreck Cove because we heard they had the best lobster roll. You know, lobster, you just have to have lobster rolls when you're up there if it's lobster season. And we did get the best lobster roll at Wreck Cove. And also, I want you to look at the wine bottle. Blomidon from Tidal Bay. What do you think that's a shortening of? somebody started a winery up there and named it for Blomidon Mountains, but Blomidon apparently comes from the how the sudden gusts come up in the mountains and can blow me down. All right. Back on the main island, I want to take you to Sherbrook. It's just a rural town. Bob, again, he's a fellow psychologist and friend of my husband's. They bought a second home up there on a lake nearby. I'll show you the beautiful lake. Yeah, isn't it pretty? And in Sherbrook, there's only one small store for groceries. For major shopping, they travel 45 minutes to Antigonish, a larger town that would have an actual supermarket and hosts an annual Scottish festival. But Sherbrook has this charming historical village, and the ladies dress in costume. You can see down at the bottom left, they have actual homes that they take you on tour in. When we were there, if you see on the right side, when we were there, there was, just like we just had in Reston before the COVID, we had a cardboard boat race. So we went to their cardboard boat race, and there was a summer fair again. There was a fair, people gathered, and there were contests. And there was a wood cutting artist who carved totem poles with the chainsaw. We participated in the day's contest and to build a fire, to see who could build a fire first. I think I came in second. And our friend and his wife tried to do what's on the top left there, was to win the log sawing contest. He and his wife, each at one end of a long crosscut saw. It is not easy. We went down to the dock where the in about noon, when the fishermen were coming in with their haul. Lobster season had passed when we arrived on this last, but this was king crab season. I mean, king crab. Look at the size of these. The ship came in loaded with about 12,000 pounds of king crab. And we went there hoping to buy a few, and they handed us a bushel full of king crab. So we cooked the claws, we split them, took out the meat, and we had a week of 3 meals a day of fantastic king crab meat. I didn't know a crab omelet could taste so good. All right. So many sailing stories up there. Here's Rudyard Kipling's story. I'm sure you've heard of it, Sailing Alone Around the World. There was no recreational yachting at the time, so this was quite a crazy idea that he was going to just go off and sail alone around the world. He left in 1795 on the Spray and came back 3 years later. I just have to share a couple of stories, one from one chapter. He said when he was down in the Straits of Magellan, he pulled into a harbor to get some supplies, and another ship's captain gave him some biscuits and some smoked meat and handed him a bag of carpet tacks. He thought that was crazy, but he accepted them kindly and went on his way. And he was warned that there were people down there, the natives, who were looking to board ships and see what they could scavenge. So he pulled into one harbor, and he was alone on the ship, and there were a number of natives circling the ship. So he went down below and changed his clothes and came back up, so he'd look like a different person, and they still weren't backing off. So he did it again. He went down below, put on different clothes and a hat, and came up as a third person. So he looked like he had some crew on his ship. So that worked pretty well. But then he needed to stay at anchor at night, and he didn't know, he figured they would be trying to board the ship at night. So he said, oh, the carpet tacks. The natives were all barefoot. All right. So now we're going to ferry from Nova Scotia to Newfoundland. Pronounced Newfoundland, because we want to see Grosse Moorne National Park. Another, of course, UNESCO World Heritage Site. You can drive, hike, or bike, and the landscape is just full of surprises. Look at this. There are fjords carved by glaciers and cascading waterfalls. Hate to leave this picture, I love it. There's another one, there's an Iceberg Festival in June. Dave and Bob flew into Corner Brook on one trip, and they biked 300 miles, got to the ferry up to Labrador, which is the mainland portion of Newfoundland Labrador. What really we enjoyed up there, besides seeing St. John, was going to the Viking settlement. L'Anse Aux Meadows is a National Historic Site, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, again, and the only authentic Nordic site in North America. We were transported back to where the Vikings once stood at the Viking encampment. We didn't, but you can try various activities, blacksmithing and weaving, or sit by the fire and listen to some heroic and tragic tales of Thor or Loki or Eric the Red. Here's some characters that tell the stories. One of the characters, Seamus, is laughing with the saga about a feast prepared with stolen goods. And Ambrose regaled us with anger about the mighty Norse god Thor. When his hammer was missing, he accused his mischievous brother Loki of taking it away. Rudyard Kipling wrote Captains Courageous. Have you heard of that? He wrote about the fishermen in Newfoundland's Grand Banks who rescued a boy in the sea who had been on a big, fancy ocean liner with his wealthy family and had fallen overboard. The fishermen kept him and made him learn to handle the boat and catch and clean the cod. But the boy shared stories with the captain's son about his rich life. Spoiler alert, it turns out well. All right, before we visit our last archipelago, I have another poll for you. And Steve's going to put up this poll, and I want you to look at the list and see if you can identify which one is not a Canadian province.
I think your list was so long there, Pat.
That's right. It takes a while to read them all. Well, I'll give you a clue. Who wants a clue? I put the answer toward the beginning.
All right, we're almost to 50%.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go. Did they get it right?
Whoa, they did. They did, absolutely. Yeah, fantastic. Halifax being the capital of Nova Scotia. Thank you for knowing that. Fantastic. All right, when you take the poll off, then I can move on ahead, Steve.
Let's see. I thought it was removed, but here. How's that? Is it gone?
Yes. All right. Ferry ride from Prince Edward Island to Les Îles de la Madeleine. You probably haven't heard of that. I don't think I'd heard of it until Bob said, we have to go to Les Îles de Madeleine sometime. It's the Magdalen Islands. The Magdalen Islands, and they're part of Quebec, which is a French province. And so, of course, it's named the islands of Magdalen, Les Îles de Madeleine. It's a 70-mile archipelago. There are about a dozen islands, and they're linked by long, thin sand dunes. The hotels were booked because there was a big sandcastle contest going on. We were lucky to find 2 rooms at the most amazing place. This is it on the upper left. It's a real boutique guest house, bed and breakfast. And it's down in the bottom part of the archipelago, and it's called Havre-sur-Mer. It's Auberge Havre-sur-Mer. Just absolutely fabulous place. It's on the beach. It has gardens and covered places to sit outside and sand. We actually swam there and the water was quite warm. We had breakfast there. We enjoyed the art as a wonderful artist whose work is on display there. We hired a car. We also, a lot of people travel there by electric bicycle. And we went hiking along the coast. There's some of the little bit of the sandcastle contest. And I want to tell you that until the 20th century, these islands were completely isolated during the winter, and the pack ice made it impossible to make the trip to the mainland. So the islands had no means of communication with the mainland. An underwater cable was established then to connect the mainland to the Magdalen Islands. But one winter in 1910, the cable broke and the islands were isolated. I mean, there's not a lot there. So the residents, I love this, they sent an urgent message for help to the mainland by writing letters and packing them inside a molasses barrel. And they set it adrift, hoping for a good result. Reached the shore on Cape Breton Island, where the residents notified the government of the emergency, and the government sent an icebreaker to help them out. There's a wonderful little museum of the sea, Musée de la Mer, where the kids practice their skills as well. And the most interesting attraction, or most fun attraction in the area where we were in Havre-sur-Mer, there was a historical area of La Grave. This used to be a business and trading center. It's a beach. But now there are many arts and craft shops and cafes and restaurants. It's a very popular place for the people that live there. The Madelinots, as they're known, the Magdaleners. We had several typical meals here at the restaurant at Café de la Grave, and we got caught up in the fantastic foot stomping Acadian music. So we left Ile de la Madeleine, we ferried back to Nova Scotia via PEI and planned our return home with sea chanties humming in our heads, and especially the contagious one that is a soldier's lament or a soldier's adieu to his beloved land when he's called off to war. And it's called Farewell to Nova Scotia. Oh, look who's here.
Farewell to Nova Scotia, see, I lost my voice. See my coast, let your mountains dark and dreary be. For when I'm far away on the briny ocean tossed, will you ever hear the sigh, a wish for me?
Thank you, Dave.
Sorry. By the way, it was Joshua Slocum.
Joshua Slocum, oh, thank you. I accept corrections. Okay. All right. Steve, we are getting ready to open up to hear your stories and questions and corrections.
Well, believe it or not, before we do that, I have a little treat for you all. And this was unplanned, but Pat said something that made me remember that I saw something pretty cool. And so
I should stop
this,
sharing. Yeah.
this is a surfer on that tidal bore that you were
Oh,
sharing. So check this out. This is pretty interesting.
nice.
And also just bear in mind, there's snow on the ground in Canada when he's doing this. There's kind of a cool shot that's coming up, and then I'll turn it on.
No, that's good.
So there you can see it a little bit better.
Oh. Wow. Wow.
Oh, yeah, it's growing. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, there's those tidal bores are all over the world, and sometimes they'll get to, in warmer climates, they'll get it where there'll be like 100 surfers and kayakers on those things. Okay, I am just bringing everybody over, and you can turn on your mics and camera if you like. If you just want to observe, you don't have to turn them off. Whoops.
I hope you get to meet our special guests and enjoy just partying with us. Pretend we're just not in COVID anymore. We're just all together talking with each other.
I don't know. I've been out to a few places lately, and it's almost like I forget that we even had the COVID, I mean, when you're outside and there's a bunch of people and.
I know. Yes, Anu put his phone number in there, so you can talk to him about the cruise to Antarctica or any other travel question. Okay, and Deb is here. She's the one that introduced me to Elizabeth Pass, who lives in Nova Scotia. Meet her.
Yep. So I'm trying to get everybody over. When you get promoted to panelist, you should be able to turn on your mic and camera. Huh. Okay, there goes some people. Okay.
Alice, Anoop. See if we have any other questions here.
Hey, Pat, I just wanted to mention that I could help anyone with the trips to Canadian Maritimes as well as other parts of Canada.
Fabulous. Okay, thanks, Anoop. Appreciate it. And your phone number's in the chat. That's great.
What's your favorite part of the world to travel to, Anoop?
It's a tough question, but Alaska has been my favorite. One of them.
Have we done Alaska yet?
No, not yet.
Nope.
Not yet.
Not
David and I did Alaska by bicycle. That was awesome. And did some glamping bicycle trip.
Oh, well, that would be a great travel party topic.
And Eileen's going to take a cruise up there one of these days.
You never know.
All right, folks. I think once you...
Alaska is open for this year also for a limited time, only for 2 months. Usually Alaska cruise is open for like 4 months, May to September, but this year the cruises are going to only happen in August and September, and probably a couple of weeks in October as well. So yeah, short season, but it's possible this year as well.
You know, there aren't a lot of people showing yet, and I know they're here and they want to come
Yeah,
on.
no, I'm not sure.
On gallery view, I only see 5 people.
Yeah, so guys, if you can turn on your, when I get you over to panelists, if you can turn on your mics and camera in the lower left-hand corner where it says start video. And when I'm prompting you to become a panelist, you can accept that.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks. I'm sorry I got on late, but I enjoyed it.
Mhm. Oh, I looked forward to getting the latest on entry into Canada. Our friend Bob said he hasn't, even though he has property there and is a dual citizen, he's not allowed in. And Elizabeth said she's not allowed to come out into the States, but it should be coming up in July, I think. Bob thought shortly you could enter through New Brunswick. There's Deb. Hi, Deb. You're kind of dark. We have some new people, Elizabeth. You look like you're up there in Halifax. You're muted. Yes. Where are you? Are you in Halifax, Elizabeth Regal?
Oh, Elizabeth Regal, she is in Rehoboth.
Yeah, well, I'm in Rehoboth, but the photos in Grand Cayman.
Hello, Elizabeth.
Hi.
Hello, Parker.
How are you?
Hi, Deb, my beautiful volleyball teammate. I claim her. Hey, hi. All right, now we're getting a few more people.
Or we have plastic cereal bowls. But that's okay, I had to thank you.
Why are they not allowing people into Canada? Is that because of the COVID?
Yes.
They've been very, very strict, very careful. Yeah, because of COVID, right?
Borders closed till fall, I think.
Hi,
Hi,
Phyllis.
how are you doing? Hi. It was not, yeah, I have a friend, her son lives in Canada, and it's just so tough now. It's impossible. Between the 2 weeks quarantine and then 3 days at a hotel and all these COVID tests, she's gonna wait and see what happens.
Elizabeth told me a good story. I hope she'll share it with you about how safe things were. Can you tell us about that story?
Can you hear me?
Liz?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. We had very tight control in the Atlantic provinces, which is actually the official name for the 4 maritime provinces. Newfoundland and Labrador not really part of, they follow the definition of a maritime piece of land, but the official Canadian maritime provinces don't include that one. However, the maritime, it's called the Atlantic provinces if you include the 4. So the Atlantic provinces had very strict guidelines and quarantine and things like that. And we were much less infected than the rest of the country for well over a year. And we had a bubble where the whole Atlantic provinces could travel freely among the 4 provinces without any kind of restrictions. And then, other waves started coming up. So we would have, we went for months and months with no new infections and no one in hospital, no one, anything. And then things started to happen and people from other parts of Canada came into the country, into the Atlantic provinces and did not follow the laws that were in effect at that time for quarantine. And we had a group of people from Ontario, actually, that came in and traveled freely for a while. And it got way out of control. They didn't realize, I guess, how much they had spread the virus. And we went within 3 weeks from 4 active cases to up to 150, 175 per day new cases, with hundreds in hospital and people dying again. And we had not had a death in more than a year. It really was, it devastated the province, the Atlantic provinces, and Nova Scotia especially. And that's when the bubble got closed off again. So it's hard to get, it's starting to open up now, because we went into immediate lockdown for 2.5 weeks. And New Brunswick had similar things happen and they locked down. And right now, as of the 23rd, we will be open to other provinces with certain restrictions, but open again for that. New Brunswick isn't entirely open now. If you wanted to travel from the States through there or from another province through there, you might be able to get in with, well, we have all of these forms you have to fill out, and you have to get agreement from the government services to travel freely. But say as of the 23rd, the bubble is supposed to open again completely, and people from other provinces will be able to come in without the very strict regulations that we had before. All the while, even though the border between the US and Canada has been officially closed, an agreement by the two governments, there has been some travel back and forth. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but I do know some people on each side of the border that have been able to travel through it. But I live in a very small fishing village too, which is halfway between Halifax and Peggy's Cove. And it looks something like Peggy's Cove, the geography. And we have 2 people here that own houses that are residents of North Carolina, and they're not dual citizens though, but they own houses here, and they've not been able to come for 2 years. So that's really sad for them. I'm so hoping that, in the next month that we'll be able to see everyone, and now that we're pretty much vaccinated, and I think so many of the people in the US are too. So.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. Appreciate you being with us. And is any place you especially take your visitors to see that we haven't mentioned that you love? Please, what do you love about Nova Scotia?
Oh my gosh, I could do a 2-hour on that, because we love being tour guides too. So anyone that would like to come, Deborah can tell you, we spent the whole time on the road doing things. And I've taken people to all the 4 Atlantic provinces. You hit on a lot of them that I do go to. One of the things, or a couple of things I really like about living here and being part of this area is the pace. I grew up in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And so if you know that area, it is a rat race. And try as many do. Their whole life is consumed by a pace that is difficult to live with sometimes. But here I find that the pace of the day-to-day activities is calmer. And I find that people's outlook on what they want for their lives and the way they approach those types of things, it's a bit calmer also. Not to say that there aren't calm places and calm people everywhere, because I know many everywhere too. But that's one of the things that I became very aware of when I moved here, and I've enjoyed so much. And one of the other big things is, and you mentioned a lot of these, is the living history that in all the Atlantic provinces is so nice. I was not a good history student. I just couldn't read and picture and enjoy history like I do, as an adult. And part of that is when you have so many museums and historical places that are living museums, and people are in period costumes, and they take on the roles of all of that. You mentioned Lewisburg, that is a fantastic place. We loved there. And Sherbrook, that's another one of the living history places, and Ross Farm, just lots and lots of places throughout Atlantic Canada. That is what, oh, and the one up in L'Anse Aux Meadows. It's just incredible. And especially on Wednesday nights, when you sit with them around the fire in one of those huts and they're telling you the stories that they lived because they're in period. But it's an amazing place to me. There's such a diverse offering of geography, and some of it feels like home to me over in the valley, and then some of it is so rustic and rugged. Right where I live, it is, and it just keeps you marveling at all of the fabulous things, and your mind can just you can't stay down very long. You just get healthy once you something, you know, you walk outside.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I want to see who else has some questions or some experiences to share.
I was going to pass on some news. I saw on TV the lunchtime news. Toronto had their first day without a COVID case. I think it was today or yesterday, but it's that current. I thought that was good. There was a hospital in Toronto that celebrated their first day without a COVID case.
Yeah.
Good. You know, Jane, are you still there, Jane? She had sent me an email question. Don't know if she's still there or not. She had wanted to know about, let me look at the gallery view. She wanted to know if there were single women that wanted to travel. She said, how do I travel as a single woman? I know that there are people that are participating with us that would resonate with that and want to join us if we do put something together sometime. I mean, when Eileen and I walked the Camino de Santiago in Spain or stayed in a monastery in Kathmandu, our girlfriends said, oh, you should have told me, I would have come with you. I want to come and be your photographer. I want to come. So I'm not trying to round up groups, but I do love to travel with groups. And so keep me posted if you're interested in doing that. You know. Any other questions, comments? Bob, where are you?
Elizabeth, it's good to see you.
Oh.
I don't hear you, Bob. He says he's technically challenged, so he said he would be here. The other guy that lives in Nova Scotia some of the year. Maybe he can't get unmuted.
Is it, what's his name? Robert Lee?
Uh-huh.
Okay, I prompted him to unmute. There, he should be able to talk now.
Hey, there's Bob.
I finally figured it out. So, anyhow, you did such a good job. I don't know what else I could say other than that I'm really upset with the Canadian government for not letting me get back to Canada.
I told a lot of your stories today.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, people when I showed you a picture of the lake you live on, they said, oh, wow, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. It's wonderful, as you know, you and Dave remember sitting on the porch and just watching the sunset.
The house you bought was quite extraordinary. Many buildings and lots of land. It's right on the water.
I'm sorry, say that again.
The house was quite extraordinary. Did you happen to buy up there? It was quite extraordinary.
Well, we just got lucky. I guess we hadn't planned on buying anything. We were up there on a vacation to bike and to row. And unfortunately, or fortunately, we walked by a real estate office, And one thing led to another. And so we found this wonderful, wonderful place.
Looks lovely.
And it's a great place to go, to use as a base to go to all the other provinces. I haven't gotten back to Newfoundland after that bike trip that Dave and I took, biking the whole length of Newfoundland, which is not a small island. And it took us 3 days, as I recall, Dave, to go from the bottom to the top. And the last day we even did like 130 miles or something because we had the wind behind us.
Mm.
Well, I don't know if everybody was on at the beginning when Eileen explained we're going to take the summer off and join you again in September, come together again in September. But if you do manage any trips, we want to hear about them. Let us know. We're not planning anything exotic. Hi, Carl. Are you planning any trips?
Well,
this summer?
we've been to the West Coast 4 times, and we were in Hawaii just a couple of weeks ago.
I'm sorry you never go anywhere, Carl. So
Travel is opening up.
It is. So Pat, shall we give away the news of where we're going to be traveling next?
The next two trips.
Okay. Well, I'll start with the one that I'm going to lead on September 10th, because nobody in events planning ever does anything around Labor Day or any other major holiday. So we're going to start. Oh, it's the 17th. That's right. So the 17th of September. So I'm sorry. We are going to Japan. And yes. And we're going to go to a lot of places that are not on the typical tourist map. So I hope that you will join us for what will, I think, be a surprise experience, even if you have been to Japan. And then Pat, in October.
I'm going to take you back to my place I grew up in Costa Rica. And I've been back many times. And Eileen and I most recently went on a tour because I'd never done a tour. I didn't know it as a tourist. So we had a wonderful OAT tour and a marvelous experience. So we have a lot to share about Central America. And we have other trips we're looking at doing in the future, just depending on how safely we can all travel. So how about Anne, do you have any questions? Oh, you're muted, so I can't ask you if she has anything to share. Yeah, Bob and Vicky go rowing on another lake down there. Not the one they live on, but another one to stay in shape. And then they go to the little gym and exercise to be ready to row. It's pretty cool.
Actually, we bought a double scull and now we row on our lake.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Well, I just want to thank you, Pat, for taking us all over these Maritimes. This was just an incredible adventure. You know, relatively so close and yet so far from the minds and experiences of most of us, I think. And we just saw a cross section of beautiful geography and history and native culture. And it just makes me want to go tomorrow.
Yeah, if we could take a month off and be up there and enjoy the trip as you took us through.
Yeah.
All along the way.
Well, I think
I
think this brings us to a close then for tonight. And thank you all for coming and sharing the adventure with us. We love having you guys, and I hope we'll get to see you all September 17th. But like Pat said, Hopefully you're going to have some good adventures this summer yourself. And when we reconvene, we'd like to hear your stories too. So please be with us. Thank you, Steve, for hosting us from behind the curtain again. And thank you to our sponsors, Anoop Mitra of Cruise Planners, American Express. Thank you, Anoop. Everybody remember that trip to Antarctica. And thank you to the Mather and Rachel McLean for their sponsorship as well.
And Steve Gurney, our man behind the curtain. Just
All right,
done a wonderful
guys.
job. He
Thanks a
sends out
lot.
All right.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Night.